illusions in and of themselves can be very useful and distracting, sometimes it's good to be distracted, but too much of it is definitely not a good thing. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us on the 27th episode of the Let's Dream podcast. Today, we will be discussing illusions. We have your host, Casey Lucid, and we also have...
Hey, it's your co-host, Lee. Hope everyone's having a beautiful day.
So, basically, we'll be going over different types of illusions and how they relate to dreams, what illusions are, and a lot of different aspects of how they basically affect our lives. So first and foremost, I want everybody to understand that there's delusions and illusions. So there's an important difference between the two. So Lee, how would you define illusion?
An illusion would be something that's not real, but your mind thinks it's real. You see something and for whatever reason, this image, thing, person might not be there through the tricks of your brain or the tricks of the person who created the illusion, or like a mirage effect, something like that.
Correct. Yeah, that's fairly spot on. That's the way that the Encyclopedia Britannica defines illusion is a thing that is or is likely to be wrongly perceived or interpreted by the senses. If it were me, I would probably leave out by the senses part of it and just be like something that is likely to be wrongly perceived. There's a difference between illusion and delusion or delusion. So when you're delusional, it's like a false belief, meaning that even if it's completely untrue, you still believe in it. Like, I'm sure we can all think of a couple of examples, but like, you think conspiracy theorists, things like that can't really be proven, but people believe in them anyway. And it's different from religious beliefs because delusions are like something that's like blatantly obvious to be false. You already gave a couple of examples of illusions. Can you think of any examples as to how an illusion may be beneficial to someone?
You can still enjoy certain illusions. Like if I put a hologram on, that's not real, but it's there, and you can like see a show from like a hologram or like a projector, right?
Right. Yeah. No. Exactly. Illusion is basically just like somebody set something up to make you see or think of something different. So arguably, a book could be considered an illusion. Like you're sitting somewhere, and like your brain just transports you to another world, but that's a voluntary illusion that's very beneficial, like you're...
Or like a magician's trick. They're filled with illusions.
Right. And I think there's something like illusions can be... I like the idea of an illusion because it's something that's neither good nor bad, and it's all in the way that it's used. Just like your words. Your words, they can be good or bad. In and of themselves, they're not inherently, like bad. For example, like we all go to the theater, or, at one point or another, we've all been to the theater, and we are all completely aware that it's an illusion. It's false. All of it is false, but you can still experience very real emotions, or the experience feels real in the theater. And it's not only the theater, like you can go to, like, have you ever been to like an orchestra or, for a musical performance, like a concert or something where it's like just sound as opposed to visual?
Yeah.
So what did you like? What was the experience like? Give me like a little bit of an example of like what it was like.
For let's say a concert.
Okay.
It was very fun. It was very energetic. There's if the band or group that was playing was just there and they didn't have the crowd, it would not feel the same. Most of the energy comes from the crowd, rather than the band making the energy come from their instruments. Is what I felt.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's a good point. I haven't thought about that. Yeah, I guess it's kind of like, yeah, like imagine if you go to a theater and it's and the theater is empty, and then you're just watching a play by yourself. That would be kind of creepy.
It's a wholly different experience.
Yeah. So it's like a group effort, like a community experience.
Like
to
a communal
voluntarily
experience. Yeah.
like to voluntarily go into an illusion. That's so interesting, because that reminds me of when we did that episode about the about like different cultures and mythology of dreams. Remember how we talked about, what was it, the Aborigines believe that all of our current existence is the dreams of our ancestors?
Yeah.
That, for some reason, that just made me think of that, what you just said about like,
Yeah.
wow.
And the episode we did on consciousness, that was I present ideas of how the basically the yogis saw consciousness and illusion and reality through their consciousness, and and thinking back to those Aborigines, it kind of makes a lot more sense as well with those ideas presented.
That's so interesting. So there's definitely a utility to illusions, like for example, with kids. So they, like, illusions, our everyday life is completely wrapped in illusions. And, part of it is so that to help your brain kind of like compartmentalize things so you can process things easier. Like, for example, like little kids with, telling them stories, like, it's clearly a lie. It's a sort of an illusion, but it's useful to the child. Like, what are some stories or like folklore or kid stories that you remember from when you were little?
Like Little Red Riding Hood, the Three Goldilocks and Three Bears. Okay.
Those are excellent examples of, like, just, they're lies, obviously. Like, animals don't talk, like bears don't live in houses, like,
yeah.
And it's like but it's a cute little story that drives the point across. Like, I was born in Bulgaria, and one common thing is like we have Baba Yaga, which is like an old lady witch that like steals kids if they're bad. It's just very, very terrifying thing to try to teach kids. And just like stories for kids are just like metaphors. Metaphors are also it's a figure of speech or a phrase that is applied to an object or action to which it is not literally applicable, but it helps get a point across. What would you say, like, for example, some of your favorite video games? Like, just list off the few, like the ones that come off to your, like, the top of your head.
I love Witcher 3.
Nice.
Final Fantasy games.
Okay.
I'm really in love with the Yakuza games right now too.
Nice. Okay. Now, what is it? What is it specifically about those games that really makes you enjoy them?
So for me personally, I enjoy the themes of games that I enjoy. They're very, like, narrative and story driven. There's lots of points where it can get emotional. There's a lot of, you can call it drama, but there's points where it kind of invokes certain emotions and it makes you really feel for the characters inside the game. And the story is just very nicely put together.
Okay.
And the characters themselves are super interesting and they're very well made.
Okay. So yeah, it's a lot of that. The reason I asked that is because based on the experience, I think there's a lot of similarities to dreams. Like, when I think about, like, my favorite dreams and, like, ones that really stick out, I would argue that a lot of it is the same things that you just listed, even though it's like a completely different thing. It's kind of strange to think about.
I mean, we can feel the same things in dreams, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, it's kind of like, I'm trying to pinpoint exactly what really is what's the value? Like, what's something, like, when you look at the different types of illusions that humans kind of like voluntarily enter into, it's like, like you have books, movies, video games, theater, art, a lot of visual art or performance art. What's the common theme in between those things that make it so valuable? Because there's definite value. I'm just trying to pinpoint what is it between them that makes it...
Emotions and feelings.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that's where the underlining utility of illusions comes from. Because it can help you kind of like... It's kind of hard to say.
Have you heard of, like, hypnotic therapy?
I have, but I don't know much about it.
Yeah, so, as opposed to not real, but typical therapy where you talk to somebody, in hypnotic therapy, they'll kind of guide you through, like, you're almost in a state of hypnotism where they'll kind of guide you through certain emotions, and you kind of experience it all over again.
Okay.
And the idea is like, hey, once you encounter it again, you can, as long as you've kind of grown or realized certain things that you didn't, most of the time, like therapists will talk about your upbringing, and the hypnotic therapy will kind of bring you back to that upbringing and make you kind of feel those emotions more viscerally, even though you're not there anymore. So with your adult mind and body, you can see what's really going on, and the hypnotic therapist will kind of guide you through it. So, it's all like contained in a safer method of experiencing emotions.
Okay.
And that helps you kind of process.
I will say this. It seems to me like the more, I don't know if progressive is the right word, but it feels like the more advanced our society becomes, the more we sidestep emotions. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Okay, like I'm not making that up, right? You see that too?
Yeah. So with technology, there's so many things that will, aside from like literal entertainment, television, story stuff, like literal phones and stuff. Things are made to like make things easier, but they're also there to distract you. They're also there to overload you with information. And what's that taking away from you as a human being?
Your awareness?
Awareness of
self?
Yeah. Right. So if you're too stimulated all the time, you're never bored. You don't have time to like kind of think for yourself or feel what you want to feel. So there's a difference when I'm playing a game when I'm angry and when I'm like enjoying a game for its story, right? And there's scientific research that supports the idea of when I'm playing a game angry, I'm actually suppressing that angry emotion. So it's just lying under the water, and and games kind of help make me feel nothing. They make me feel enjoyment for the game, right? But at the same time, it's kind of pressing under the real emotions. And that's the same idea with like, being on the phone all the time, looking information up, looking at YouTube videos, or looking at, and this could be applied to many other things, but it's a lot easier to apply it to technology because of its availability.
I see. No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. So it's just something that's just so available. That's like a quick hit or like a easy distraction.
Yeah.
So it's like illusions in and of themselves can be very useful and distracting, like sometimes it's good to be distracted, but too much of it is definitely not a good thing.
Yeah. For example, it's a really crappy movie, but there's a movie on Netflix called The Social Dilemma.
Okay.
You seen it?
I have not.
Okay. So it's really about social media and like what people, the creators of like Twitter, the Facebook and stuff, or like not the creator, but like the people that programmed and developed certain things for these platforms. And there's the guy and it introduces the guy who made the Facebook like button.
Okay.
And he's like, I've done the worst thing to humanity. I made the like button. And it was very dramatic. It's not a very good movie, or documentary, but it's very weird. And, I think what you're saying is like a great example. The Facebook like button. It's not even real, but why do people feel almost addicted to it, right?
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. I think you touched on something very important there. It reminds me of, it's like money. It's currency. That's what I feel like it is, like, except you can't buy anything with it. It's like an even grander illusion. It's like, it's money, but then it's like, I don't know, it's like attention. It's almost like people love attention for whatever reason, but like, God, like, what am I trying to say here? It makes me think of, and I know I always bring it up, but I'm going to bring it up again. It makes me think of The Gods Must Be Crazy. Again, it's an incredible movie. Everybody should watch it. Like, that should be like a mandatory watch for like every school student, but anyway, or high school student. But basically, it's a tribe of Bushmen in Africa, and they find a Coke bottle, and then like everybody starts fighting over the Coke bottle. It's really weird, but the movie itself is great because it kind of like it shines a light on the illusion of possessions and how you can't really own anything. It seems like everybody has kind of entered this game of ownership of things, even though like you can't. It's the strangest thing because you don't really like, nothing is really, it makes things feel like they're more of a part of you than they really are, kind of like social media.
Yeah.
And it's really it's kind of insidious in a way, almost, you know, like it just kind of burrows in the back of your head.
It is.
But
And I will keep saying the fact that like these companies and marketers know what they're doing. They want you to crave products. They want you to, keep farming likes on Facebook. Keep getting pointless internet points,
Yeah, man, that's so strange to think about. And it's almost like there's something that I've noticed in the West is very like US specifically is just like they're excellent at refining things to the point of no nutrition. What I mean to say is it's kind of like you have fast food, which is like calories without nutrition, and then you have social media, which is like human interaction without the human, really. So it's like it's very empty of nutrition. I don't know how else to explain it. It's like entertainment. It's kind of like you have a book, you have a story, you have a comic book, you have a graphic novel. Those are things that you sit down and you kind of like, you apply your own imagination into it. Like you have to piece it all together. But then you have like TV, which is so refined. It's like you barely have to do any effort to digest it. It just goes straight in. It's like you don't really have to think. So it's like, I mean, kudos to, like the entertainment industry for figuring all that out. But it's like, I don't know. Like there's good and bad, but it's just that it's so easy to overconsume and overindulge.
Yeah. And there's definitely like levels of like entertainment, right? And there's like, you can have the cookie cutter shows or cookie cutter movies that Marvel and Disney tends to put out. Like they all have the same formula. But if you want like more riveting or stimulating movies and ideas, those movies tend to not be so marketed in your face. You know what I mean? Just because whatever company doesn't have as much money for marketing and budgeting.
So it's kind of like then the question sort of arises, why are they so successful? Why are those cookie cutter types so successful? Is it because that's the type of illusion that people want to enter in more than anything else?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I'd say. They work because they will always be enjoyed.
You know what?
That doesn't mean they'll work for everyone still.
But what's kind of interesting is, a lot of those blockbuster big movies hits, it's kind of like, they often emphasize, like the characters and their relationship in between one another. And what you mentioned about, social media, like it's so addictive and it kind of breaks the actual connections that people have. It's interesting. It's like a catch-22 almost. It's like, oh, use social media to get connected with more people, but it's like in a way it alienates you from people because it's not the real thing. And so it's the type of illusion that it's almost like I'm almost wanting to call it a delusion. It's like
I think it can get into there if you look at what I think you've touched on a great point. If you look at like the Instagram models and the people that are on Instagram, they get sponsored just for their looks, and they have the great angles, they have edited photos, they have all this thing that jazz up their looks, and it does not look like real life. But for people looking onto it, what is their thoughts? Right? They see this fitness model, male or female.
Oh, it's like they just they want to look like that.
Yeah, they want to look like that. And they believe they can look like that because they see so many photos of it. So, they're looking at an illusion, but then they believe, hey, this person does this, and I can look like that if I just be like them.
Yeah.
Right? So then I think it falls into delusion at that point.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. Like, have you ever... what was the name of the book? There's a book. It's called Tribe. Have you ever heard of the book Tribe?
I have not.
It's by Sebastian Junger. I want to say Junger or something like that. Really, really cool book. He talks. The entire book is about how we're social creatures and we need to have social bonds and work towards common goals, because that's at the root of happiness for human beings. And he talks about how. Oh God, that book is so interesting. He talks about how during Western expansion of the colonies, of the U.S. colonies, a lot of people defected over to the Native American side. which was really weird, like to the point where there was like penalties of death if you were caught as defecting over to the Native Americans. So like these civilized people couldn't understand why you would want to join a bunch of, what are they called? Like wild people, you know, like, and what they didn't understand is that Native Americans, a lot of their cultures, not all of them, some of them, I mean, you got to remember there was over 500 different tribes, so they varied a lot, but a lot of them were just, they had better social bonds. They like, you felt like you were part of the group. Like you felt like you belonged there, which I don't know, like Western modern man is really good at alienating, you know, each other. Part of it has to do with the comforts that you were mentioning. It's like you have all the comforts you need. Why would you need, like previously we needed these strong social bonds so we can get over difficult obstacles. Now everything's like delivered to your front door, you know, like so it's so strange.
Yeah. What if I said that like these social bonds were also an illusion? They're not really real, are they? Okay. I will accept that challenge. I would say that they're more real because of the emotional attachment that comes with them. So like, you know, like if you're out hunting with somebody or like, I don't know, doing something that requires skill and effort and you have to like be a good team member and you're working together to solve a goal, I would argue that that's, you know, that builds a real bond. Okay. Would you say otherwise or? I could say that the bond might or might not be there. I think I can say that for factually that, hey, there is this person that I can definitely rely on. This person is smart, able, and, you know, knowledgeable in hunting or whatever you just mentioned.
Sure.
And just because of those evidence fact, they're really good to have, you know, next to you.
Yeah, I mean, so okay, like yeah, you won't definitely like if you ever play a team sport, you know, or if you're ever in a team anything, you realize that you're not necessarily going to get along with everyone, but there's something very valuable about overcoming obstacles with others that definitely creates a stronger bond. Like I don't know what it is. Maybe it's something that, you know, because we've been doing it for so long as human beings. I think it's something that's lacking in today's day, partially because of the comforts.
All right, so we established that illusions aren't real, but it's how they're perceived, right?
Yeah, I mean, like for example, okay, there was a great experiment. I forget what was the name of the psychologist that did this, but it's basically there's a great experiment where you have a classroom full of students that and you make two of the students from the classroom leave the room, and then you have a topic and you tell all of the people in the classroom that they're going to side with one of the sides of the topic, you know, like for or against the topic, regardless of what it is, you know, and then you have the two students come back in and then they make their arguments, no matter how good the person that like one of the people is for it and one of them is against it. And let's say the entire classroom is going to be against the argument. No matter how good the person's argument is for it, if everybody is against them, you know, the illusion is that the entire group starts to, you know, like change their point of view. Like they start to kind of like chip away at their sense of reality, I guess, in a way. But like, so that the person can change unless that person is really strong-willed, then they will tell the entire room of, like the entire classroom of people basically to F off. So that's kind of like, to me, that's a metaphor of life. But yeah, like what I was saying with like, that whole tribe is, he tries to kind of like emphasize that why is it that, you know, America, for example, is such a great nation, so advanced, but it's like the number one in people shooting up our own neighborhoods or social gatherings. You know, it's like not necessarily out of why are we number one in like shooting up each other in terms of like mental illness, like as opposed to like, you know, not like gang warfare or something like that, but like people actually going crazy and shooting up a place, you know what I mean?
I mean, I believe you just said it in there, like mental illness is like the number one proprietor of these things.
Yeah. It's just so far in modern society, we've all delved too far into the illusion. It's too much into the illusion, I guess, would be.
And remind me of what that would be again? Of too much of
the illusion.
Of what?
Social media, entertainment,
okay.
Like technology, or depending, like entertainment. I would say entertainment is like a good overarching term.
Okay.
And one thing that I really wanted to bring up for illusions is like one of my all-time favorite artists. His name is Rene Magritte. Highly recommend anybody look him up. But he was a very interesting guy, and one of his most famous paintings is a painting of a pipe that says, "This is not a pipe." That's the title of the painting. And what he's doing is he's explaining to people, like, you're looking at a symbol that stands for something that isn't the real thing. Just like when Alan Watts does his lecture about words, and it's kind of like saying water is not the same thing as the actual physical water, So words, language, in a way, is also an illusion, because it's just pointing you to something else, that the pointer itself isn't the thing. And another great artist, John Cage, who's a musician and kind of like an avant-garde artist, he has like several really amazing pieces where they really kind of get you to understand how everything just kind of flows in and out of each other, and that the illusion is that there's like a separate event. Anyway, I'm rambling here. But yeah, you get the idea. That's basically
Yeah.
But the last one I wanted to bring up is language barriers. So you speak another language, right?
Well, I speak a couple other languages.
Okay. Have you ever had a language barrier moment?
I know, all the time.
Okay, give an example.
Well, I'm Vietnamese, but growing up, I spoke quite a bit. But now my adult years, I've not used it as well, just because I don't have a lot of friends that speak it as well, and I don't really speak it to my parents.
Okay.
And I've lost a lot of the language, unfortunately. And sometimes my mom will say things, and I'm like, oh, what?
Okay.
And if I go back to Vietnam, then I'm like, oh, God, I can't talk to anybody.
Okay. Well, so how old were you when you, you were young, right, when you learned English?
Yeah. I was like in first grade.
Okay.
Trying to learn English. And all these other kids were able to speak it, and I wasn't. Okay.
Well, so language barriers are really interesting, and I really love hearing language barrier stories. But basically, a really clear example for me is when I learned the expression, because I'm bilingual too, and when I learned the expression "behind your back." So that never made sense to me, and it's still to this day, I don't really understand it. I understand the context under which to use the expression, but it doesn't make sense to me, because if I was to say "in front of your face," you would know exactly where it is, right? If I say "behind your face," you would know that would be in front of your back.
I don't know. I would think it's inside my skull. Because, my face is the front of it, and then my back of my head's the back of my head. So if you say "behind the face," under the skin, inside your
Interesting.
Head. Sorry, that's how I took it.
Interesting. Okay. Well, that's that's another good example right there. Language barrier is kind of I guess, the way it's open to interpretation to a degree. But anyway.
But idioms, I have a lot of international friends, but they never understand idioms, that are Western idioms. It's really fun to see, actually.
Okay. I could see that. Yeah. But yeah, so that's, in a way, it's kind of there's a philosopher, his name is Jidou Krishnamurti, and he talks a lot about, he's kind of a really Zen, kind of a Zen Buddhist, but he doesn't really affiliate with any type of religion. But he tries to explain that the real truth, if there is any, comes from complete silence. Not silence where you're not saying anything and you're still thinking, but silence where you're just being, which is really hard to do. But that's probably the closest thing to no illusions that anybody can get to. Would you agree to that?
So, did you say no thinking?
Yeah, I mean, not no thinking necessarily, but not like just observing, I guess. Like, I have his book. I don't know where it is right now, but like, I have like this really great quote of his that's like outlined. It's something along the lines of, a person who's sitting down and meditating and knows his mind is silent doesn't have a silent mind. So it's kind of like...
Okay, yeah. I was going to mention meditating because that's exactly what he was referencing, or that's what it sounded like he was mentioning meditation as a form of like no illusions, because in the last, we talked about meditating allows you to step outside of your mind, and everything that you perceive is, going on within your mind. So what happens when you step out of it?
Yeah, I mean, like you kind of refresh. I mean, really, refresh is the only...
You refresh. Yeah, you can see more than just your mind.
Yeah, it's kind of like it increases your awareness.
Yeah. So if you're watching too much TV and then you got these certain beliefs that like, oh man, I can be a Disney princess one day, you can just kind of like take a step back and see like, why does your mind think that way?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like I think illusions are very useful to a degree. Like anything, too much of anything is a bad thing. But yeah, like since we're talking about illusions, I do think that mentioning what the truth is important, and I think that that's somewhere close to the truth. Like that, like what you said, is just having that, being able to have that silence and being able to slow down the mind, I think gets close to the truth. Yeah? Would you agree?
I mean, yeah. You don't really have to necessarily slow down the mind.
Okay.
You can definitely observe it, and then once you observe what your mind is doing,
okay, you
can definitely be like, you can confirm for yourself whether you like that or don't, and then just do you.
Okay. I like that. Yeah. Be yourself. But yeah, that's pretty much all I had that I wanted to discuss about illusions. I mean, there's obviously like, like we have like the optical illusions. Those are, everybody knows what that is. You have auditory illusions, like you hear things that aren't there, or like sometimes you get like that ringing in your ears, or I mean, there's specific reasons for that, but again, it's not necessarily something that's happening on the outside. This is an interesting one. There's tactile illusions. Tactile illusion meaning like phantom limb syndrome, like you get your hand chopped off.
Okay, yeah. I don't know how that works, but I find it fascinating.
Yeah, like I would imagine it has something to do with the fact that like you have the neural connections so strongly set up.
Yeah, it's very neurological.
Yeah.
And I can't wrap my brain around it.
Yeah. But yeah, that's basically it. That's all I have for illusions. I mean, dreams obviously are a type of an illusion that your brain plays on itself, but it's still useful, especially if you can lucid dream. Then you can kind of like manipulate the illusion. So it's interesting. Okay, well, do you have any closing thoughts, Lee?
I think that the idea of what we talked about in consciousness kind of plays into this a lot, where I mentioned that the yogis thought everything is an illusion and that, hey, it's okay. And then we're able to like enjoy it. We can only perceive so much as human beings, and we can't always rely on our senses, but we can definitely enjoy what we perceive. And if things harm us, then the illusion might be too much, and we need to kind of recognize that and, deal with it in whatever ways we can.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, so I believe that's all you got for us today, Casey?
Yes, sir.
We have recently opened up a subreddit. It's just called Let's Dream Podcast /r at r/r/ Let's Dream Podcast. Yeah, so we've received a huge influx of dream stories, and we thought this would be like the best way to like kind of have them all in one place. And this will allow you guys to read it as well. And if you guys want to check that out, please do. We have our social medias down in the description below. Give us a like and a follow. Share with a friend. We hope you learned a lot today.